So welcome forward to the Plywood stage, and it's an honor to interview you. This week I ate at Superica a couple times already. It's just in preparation for this interview, right?
Awesome.
And so let's start by just talking about the experience. You have multiple restaurants, and I know that you think about the full experience of a person that walks into each one of those restaurants uniquely. So talk about how you create those experiences, what you see that I don't see.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. That's something, I think it kind of came to me early on. It was kind of how I thought that, I'm always watching and learning how people, how times have changed. In restaurants, we're all like striving to be better in whatever way because there's just so much more competition, and what do we want to do to be the best? So my thought was, what I liked going to a place that was like, first and foremost, it's got to be about the food. It's got to be great food. But I love all the other elements of it. And I think what it boiled down to me was providing an atmosphere, or an environment, or a situation for our guests to come and hang out with their guests and whoever they were with. So all we're doing is providing them of that meal or that experience. And how we touch them and how we stage that experience for them starts at valet and goes to the hostess, and it goes in to when they're first greeted and all that stuff, to the music, to the lighting, to the chairs. So I think being an entrepreneur, it's all about I think I'm always looking at every little detail and stuff to turn it off.
So when you think about, I know some of these restaurants, you have these unique little touch points, little things that most people wouldn't notice. What would be some of those things that you've had? Like your new restaurant, you have something in the men's bathroom.
Oh yeah. So at Marcel, there's always something. I want something for people to walk away and say, to tell someone about it. So we don't have a marketing budget, so it's more about adding to the experience, but also using the experience and letting this experience be your marketing tool. So in the bathroom at Marcel, I don't know about you guys, but I always hated going into bathrooms where there was a bathroom attendant there where I had to pull out and fork out some cash to tip this guy for handing me a towel. But I loved having all the stuff, and I wanted to have access to all the different stuff in the Clubman talc and the Old Spice cologne and all this stuff. So we have like little drawers and little candies in the drawers, little cologne. I did buy a Polo, the green bottle Polo, and that thing was gone. Polo, right? Someone stole that the first day, So that's fun. There's always little elements. I don't take things that seriously. I think food is fun. So there's always elements of humor to what we do. So there's always, and that's just typically me and Alvin or me and whoever sitting around, wouldn't this be funny if we did this, or something like that. So.
And then you just do it.
And then we just do it.
That's great. And so when you think about launching a restaurant, which you've launched multiple, you're going to launch a new one, I think in Houston really soon.
Yes.
There's not everyone here is from the restaurant industry. They're from all different industries, solving all different problems. What do you think about in relation to launching what you're doing? Like, what are the aspects for you that you feel like makes a great launch?
Well, it always, for the first 2 years when I was kind of gearing up wanting to launch a restaurant, I went at it from, this is the type of restaurant I want to do. Let me find a location to do that. And it took 2 years for me to really learn that wasn't the right, it was too difficult of approach to take it that way. So I changed kind of the idea of let's find a location and analyze that. Look at that location. What does the community need? So it has to be two things. What does the community need? What does the location feel like, basically? What's needed in that area, as well as what am I passionate about? So it started with location driven, and that's why you see us doing numerous types of restaurants, because it's like, I don't want to lose anybody's money. I don't want to lose investors' money. So I try to look at everything and ask those questions every time we open a restaurant. Is like, what is needed right there? What's the right price point? What's the right experience? What's the right food? But I've got to be passionate about it as well. So all those factors all have to kind of come together.
Love that. And you have this unique ability to pass off the restaurant. So I think probably think people think that if it's a forward fried restaurant, they're always going to see you, but you have 8 restaurants, so there's no way they can always see you, right?
Yeah, right.
So talk about this idea of, empowering a person to be the leader of that restaurant, and how do you work with chefs to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, what I learned was early on, I'm always in search of, hey, what is it, what makes me, what am I passionate about? And I really learned that I was passionate about people, and I was passionate about putting others before me. And it's kind of grown in my philosophy in a way, but I always wanted to create things for my people. And I noticed as a chef, if anyone's, a creative type, if someone tells you what to make or what to cook, you're not as passionate about it unless you come up with it yourself, and unless it's yours and you own it. So I kind of learned early on that I can't be everywhere. I'm not flying a helicopter to every restaurant and cooking or whatever. So I have to rely on these people, these great people. And I love watching them grow and learn from their mistakes. Like if someone makes a mistake, it's like, no big deal. Cool. You made a mistake, you learn from it, move on. It's not like, we're angry with them or anything like that. So I've really kind of got to a place where it enables me to have a life with my family. It also enables me to do all the fun things that I want to do and kind of come up with the restaurant or create the restaurant and inspire the chefs to get better every day. I don't know how it's worked, but somehow it worked.
Love it. Now I've heard you talk before about this combination of, or this contrast between celebrity and servant.
Yeah.
And obviously, you have created a persona. This is a forward fry restaurant. This is a forward fry experience. How do you battle that tension?
Well, I think I recognize it. It was, where that comment came from was, I was doing a talk on humility, and I happened to go to a church one Sunday, which was one we used to go to, and the pastor was Crawford Loritz, and he just happened to randomly be there, and I was speaking the next day, and his sermon was on humility. I'm like, great, this dude is just writing my speech for me. And he threw out the phrase. He says, he started off by saying, I want to give him the credit for it, but he started off by saying, hey, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a celebrity or do you want to be a servant? And a lot of chefs these days, with the TV and all this stuff going on, they want to be a celebrity. And I thought hard about it, and I'm like, I think we all want to be a celebrity, but deep down, what works for me is serving others, and putting others before me and looking out for their benefit, looking out for their own intentions. And for some, it just always comes back, and it's better for all. So I'm really passionate about that. I think to myself that, the day that these restaurants become all about Ford is really the beginning of the end for me. So, or the restaurant So
your partner, you have a partner, he's your brother-in-law?
Yeah.
So just kind of a question, do you recommend working with family?
It's been great for me. And I know sometimes sometimes it may be a necessity. I think that's because there's so many people that want to start their own business, but businesses take money and some, and a lot of times that's where you've got to get it from, if that's your only source. So I made sure that I'm like, listen, I'm going to give you an out. I gave him 3 different times. I'm like, I'm going to give you an out here. You do not have to invest in me. And he just laughed. He said, Ford, he's kind of country, and he's younger than me, but he's like, we're all big boys here, and if you lose all my money, then you just better cook better on Thanksgiving. So, so I'm like, all right, So far for us, for me, it's been good. I haven't had any. We haven't had any. It's really nice. But I think the family member. I guess if I had any advice, just make sure the family member has like a good 100-time multiple more money than you have in a way, so that minimal amount that they lose is not going to affect them.
Could be small.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
All right, as a chef, I'm curious, where do you love to eat? Not including your restaurants. Where do you love to eat?
You know, okay, when I go to I get this question a lot, but when I go to restaurants, I mean, it's typically fancier restaurants. I'm out of town, but when I'm in Atlanta, I'm always looking for barbecue or Buford Highway or tacos or good Asian food. So I'm like at Fox Brothers Barbecue. Being from Texas, I'm always looking for something smoked and meat and all this. So I'll go there. I mean, Community Q is also one of my favorites too. For the most part, those are the places I'm going. If I'm going to if I am going, we want to take someone out where it's not necessarily my restaurant. I mean, maybe in that kind of level, I'll go to Floataway Cafe. Has always been really fun. That's one that people kind of fall off the radar. It's been there a while. Boca Lupo is really fun. He's a buddy of mine. And I go to Boca Lupo just because this guy, Bruce, the chef, is passionate about cooking, and he is cooking every night. He's actually physically cooking. So order pasta when you go.
So in Atlanta, some of the restaurants, I didn't name these earlier, that are yours, JCT Kitchen, Superica, which is in Inman Park, and name some of the others. Marcel,
The Optimist.
The Optimist, which has gotten rave reviews.
Yeah. St. Cecilia, King and Duke.
St. Cecilia, King and Duke.
The El Felix.
The El Felix. So
maybe
if you didn't know those, I should have set that up in the beginning. Those are the restaurants that are Fords. I'm sure many of you have heard of them. So what do you think are some principles or things that could be replicated based on the success that you have, regardless of industry? What's something that you've learned that other people could learn from?
I always go back to humility. And again, I try to watch and see what others do, and others who succeed and others who may not succeed. And, I think there's a tendency of when you have one success or you think highly of yourself too much, then you lose focus of what's real and what's really needed. I'm very conscious of the future and truly that I'm only as good as what I'm doing next. So every venture or any kind of startup, I'm always going back to ground zero and just pretend like I don't know anything, and I'm gonna make sure I do it right every step of the way. So humility is really huge for me. I think if that's one word that defines me or defines my company, that's really what it is. So.
And you go back and check on the restaurants consistently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you check in on the chefs. You walk in the front door. What is going through your mind?
Everyone knows, whenever the lights dim down and the music level goes up, they know I'm there. That's what I do. I'm always making, a lot of times there's only a few people who have this sensory vision, and some people see it and some people don't see it, and naturally, and I used to get real upset because I'm like, how do you not see that? How do you not hear that? I'm thinking that to myself. I don't say that out loud, but I'm doing that. I'm looking at that, and then I'm watching food. My mind is rolling. I'm really taking in a lot of stuff, but obviously with a restaurant, there's a lot going on. I never take that time to communicate anything that I see at that point. That's always like a follow-up. So that's kind of what I'm going on. I'm just looking around to make sure everyone's having fun and just kind of absorbing it all.
The experience of the people.
Yeah.
That's cool. So obviously, I think that you're a creative genius in our city. You show brilliance in what you create and what you've contributed to Atlanta and really the entire food industry. But how do you stay creative? So I think sometimes you get so enthralled in one project, and a lot of people here, they're working, giving all that they can on one project, and they get burned out. How do you stay fresh? How do you stay creative? How do you keep innovating, especially in a space where there's more and more chefs that are coming up with really inventive new experiences and new dishes? How do you stay on top of your game?
Well, a long time ago, a while back, a friend of mine who was with marketing in Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A, they are the masters. I'm sure there's Chick-fil-Aites out here, but they love the books and all these tests and things like that. So he said, hey, you need to take this test. In the back of a Strength Finder book, I think is what it's called. Mm-hmm. And this, it was really kind of a turning point for me in a way that it said my strength, and I think it was called a maximizer, because a long time I used to think that I was a creative type. And that book told me that, and that little test that I took in the back of the book told me that I was a maximizer and I wasn't a creative type. So really what I was someone who took an idea and my mind rolls with it and tries to make it better, which I think kind of imparts into some creativity to at some length. But so I travel, a lot of times I'll travel. Before we open any restaurant, I'm taking myself, a couple other chefs, whoever the chef of that restaurant's going to be, and we travel. We'll either go to LA, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Napa, all this, even like Seattle, Portland, just to kind of see what's going on in other cities, just to kind of experience being around other chefs and talking about different things. Because what happens is, if we remain like kind of in our own town, we kind of get inbred, a little bit. Everyone's kind of doing what someone else is doing. So I try to look out and far away and see what other people are doing and what other interesting creative things, and then kind of play on them or do little spins on that, or it just even inspires us to kind of do things a little bit differently.
Love that.
So
Let's talk about this tomato festival you
Yeah.
started. Of all things, the tomato festival. Explain why you did this, what happens, and what your purpose is in it.
Well, so, as a kid, I remember this movie, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Probably one of the worst movies ever, but it was funny. It was that element of humor of these tomatoes rolling around the town and killing everybody. When I opened JCT, we had a lot of farmers who came to our back door, and we were buying their tomatoes, and then it came for peak tomato season, and the farmers they work so hard for so little. We want to buy everything they have. So at this time, so they come with just loads and loads of tomatoes. So they're just peak season. They can't even get rid of their tomatoes. So I'm like, well, let's hold a festival, a crazy fun festival, not a real expensive, highbrow, sun hat, polo field festival. Let's throw one that's fun, where we have a cool, fun band that's playing, cool, fun music. People are in shorts, T-shirts. We're doing all tomato tastes, tomato cocktails. So it's really just, number one, so it started with, really trying to buy out the farmers and of all their tomatoes, and we've accomplished that a little bit too far. So we buy out all the farmers, and now we've kind of resorted to having to invite chefs from out of town so they can bring their tomatoes from Florida or Alabama or Tennessee or whatever, because our farmers run out. So that's where it was all about. So it's been fun.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Any final words of advice that you have for emerging entrepreneurs or nonprofit leaders in this room? What advice would you give them that you wish someone would have given you?
I wish I would have done it a little bit earlier. I'm 46 now. That's one thing I wish I would have done. I think I had enough to really, I needed to know what I was doing first. But I would say a lot of times entrepreneurs, I think we are, for the main part, is we are dreamers. And a lot of times we think that in a chef world, I'll say, and you could probably translate it in what other field it is, but we think, oh, this is my food. I love it. People are going to love it, and I'm going to hit a home run here. And sometimes we have to look outside of that box and figure out, yes, you have to do what you're passionate about doing, but I think, so my advice would be is to really dig in and find out what does the consumer want, What does the consumer want, and what does the consumer need? Because the consumer may not know what they want, nor know what they need. But it can't be all about you and your idea in a way. It's got to be something that makes sense, and it's got to be the right thing. So
that's good. It's really good feedback. Well, my team and I were talking like 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago it was about?
Maybe.
2 weeks ago, and we were like, man, we need an afternoon snack. This food, we just try to keep filling you guys in the off season. So I was like, what would be like the best thing that we could possibly get? And we were thinking about who was coming, and it was like what if we had chips and salsa from Superica here for everyone at the event? And so then I texted Ford and I was like, hey man, can you give me chips and salsa for everyone at our event? And he was like, yeah, sounds cool. And then his entire team started calling me and emailing me like, how many people are gonna be there? And so anyway, Ford has generously given, and his team has figured out how to give chips and salsa to everyone that we'll have at the break after this session, which will be really good. So if you've never had, if you've never tasted his food, you will get an incredible taste this afternoon when we take a break. But please welcome and thank, I said welcome, please thank Ford Fry for joining with us this afternoon. Thank you. Awesome.